Entrepreneurial Edge is brought to you by Business Banking from FNB, because small ideas can lead to big business. FNB, how can we help you?
Hello again, we're delving into the fascinating trade of headhunting in business. On the face of it, it seems a simple way to make money. A company wants to hire a top manager, you go out and find the best you can and you get paid. But is it that simple? Now let's continue to ask the questions of Jonah Naidoo of Mindworx, who built his headhunting business from scratch. Now, from one man without a garage, as we heard in the first half, how did you actually get the finance to grow to employing the 30 people you employ now?
Chris, I think it wasn't easy. I think when we started the business, that it was at the time of or just after the dot-com crash. So, realistically, I knew that there wasn't money forthcoming. I think when you're in the services business, in the industry we're in, with so much competition, I think you can't get an appointment with a bank manager. So, I made the call not to go that route. My wife and I committed all our life savings into the business. We mortgaged to the hilt, I think it was the first real risk I ever took, but it seemed to got a lot easier after that.
So your whole life was thrown into this thing. It must be very scary for you as an entrepreneur.
Well, I think it is scary, but I think I think I'm an eternal optimist. I think I do believe in myself, and there's always hurdles. And I didn't give myself an option to fail or to tire.
Sounds like just as well that you are an optimist, but and also you launched in very difficult times, and sadly unemployment, especially for executives in the last few years, has become a big fact of life. Surely in that case, the demand for looking for people for jobs, surely there must be more people out of work than in work at the moment. Doesn't that affect you at all?
Yes, it does. I mean, I think we must be frank to say that since the recession, I think the recovery in the market has been slow, and also protracted. I think what we're seeing though is that generally across our business, certainly permanent recruitment numbers are up, marginally so, but our contract businesses, which is essentially interim management, fixed-term contracts, that is people working on short-term type projects, has increased tremendously. So I think what you're seeing is that the market or our clients certainly are employing people on a more project type basis, on a temporary basis rather than permanent. It is certainly more difficult for executives to, as you reach the senior levels, to be married into other jobs. It's not a problem here. I think it's a worldwide issue.
And in terms of making money in the headhunting business, what kind of industries are the ones to be looking at?
Well, we certainly are focused, and I think maybe why I think we are successful in this space is that we are very focused. I think we're very focused in the financial services industry, and we work on the private sector and the finance cluster of government, I guess. And that's helped us to be focused, and our business is aligned accordingly. So I think in that respect, we understand the market very, very well. We know the players, we know where the demand is, we know where the talent lies, and in that way, we were able to move talent around in that space. For us, that model has worked very, very well. Other businesses are maybe not that focused. It makes that tougher. So I think for us to be a lot more efficient, it certainly helps to be that focused.
How much competition is there in the headhunting business right now?
Chris, honestly, I think there's really no barriers or little barriers to entry in this market. So anybody that's worked with a major brand feels confident enough to open up this business, actually does, and doesn't even think twice about it. So people with maybe one or two relationships, it's very hard to replicate those relationships. So that you'll find a lot of small players, I guess, in the market, and then fewer players in the mid segment, and then even fewer at the top. And you see the market consolidating, especially in this time. So competition is rife.
How much danger is there that the market is becoming saturated, do you think?
The market moves in cycles. There's always going to be peaks and troughs, a question of demand and supply. 4 years ago, we were thinking about scarce skills, and that was the topic only. Now it's about unemployment, So I think definitely that the market moves and will correct as well. It is a cautious, and the mood is not, the mood is volatile, I guess.
What are the big issues in the headhunting business right now? I mean, what do people talk about in the industry when you get together?
Well, I think that I think there are a few issues. I think one, I think I alluded to earlier, was the social media and integrating that into a business. I think that's transforming our businesses for our clients, for ourselves, I guess for our competitors, very much. And I think we've got to be quite alert, and we've got to be nimble into adopting the technologies. I mentioned earlier it's made the process a lot more easier, but I think there's still hard work that still goes into it. So I think social media is one. I think the other is that is on the legislation and labor reforms. I think as our current legislation, I mean, it's a fact that it protects the employed, and what we would like to see is a climate and a reform that talks to creating a climate of incentivizing employment rather than protecting existing, because I think we all agree that youth unemployment is an issue, and so what we'd like to see, there's a lot more debate on creating the climate for new employment.
How likely is it that that's ever going to happen here in South Africa, in the continent's biggest economy? I mean, it's been talked about for many years, but I don't see the political will to actually make wholesale changes.
As a business, I think we're confident and cautiously optimistic, I guess, that we will see change and we will see good, if business can prove the business case for unemployment, for new employment, I guess, then I think the powers that be will listen. And I think we've got to engage them, and I think we've got to engage them very hard. But I think there is goodwill. I think it's a tough environment to convince our social partners, but certainly that business has got to be selling this message.
Now that's South Africa. What about the rest of the continent? Are you one of these companies who've got eyes on spreading into the rest of the continent?
Definitely. I think that I think we've built up a solid base and a good foundation in the country. I also think that Africa as a continent is very attractive, and we just have to look at companies in the East and what they're doing and how they're racing against time on this continent. So we believe that our next growth opportunity will come, in fact, from the continent, and we are exploring and talking to other partners on the continent as well.
Where are the big gaps and opportunities in the African continent right now?
I think we focused our efforts in sub-Saharan Africa as a start. I think first prize would be to prove ourselves in that market, and then later on move into other territories.
And how are you looking to grow and expand your own business?
Well, I mean, we've taken a view to grow organically in this market, and I think that part of our service offering, the way we manage our clients, the way we manage our candidates, will speak for itself. And it's a hard route to follow to grow organically. It's a lot easier acquiring. But in this market and looking at the competitors and that, I think we're putting our heads down to grow on our own.
And do you think this kind of trade, as we look ahead now with all the things we've mentioned, recession, we've mentioned social networking, do you think it's going to grow, or do you think it might shrink?
The market?
Yeah, the market and the business like yourself.
I think there's opportunity. I think this is it's an age-old business. It's always happened. It's always been there. I think companies will always need the independent help to go and find good talent. It's always going to exist. The question is who's going to survive and who's going to be those players. We certainly want to be the player. We certainly want to give our customers that confidence, and that's what we attune to in our business.
Now, the kind of aggressive headhunting that you hear about from the United States and Europe, where people are sitting there minding their own business at their desks, and suddenly there's a phone call, someone saying, are you happy? Are you earning enough money? Your boss is treating you right? Do you think that's ever really going to take root in the African continent, do you think?
What are you talking about, Chris? We do that every day.
Every day? Is that the way you do it?
There's no other way.
But do you think people are aggressive enough in Africa in this sort of headhunting business, or will it go even further?
I think so. I definitely think we are aggressive. I think that we operate in a very small market. So operating in a small market means that we have to be a lot more nimble, maybe a lot more aggressive. So I think that we certainly are, and we've got to be trying all these innovative means to lure people where the talent exists and where they match the requirements for our clients.
So, as you know, there are many entrepreneurs and would-be entrepreneurs sitting out there. Having listened to what you said in the last half an hour, what would you say to them? What sort of advice would you give them if they wanted to get into this game of headhunting?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, there's no barriers to entry. I mean, you can get into this thing. I think that it's certainly an exciting business. It certainly has its downside with disappointment sometimes, as I mentioned, with candidate and client. But overall, it's thrilling. I mean, there's no greater thrill, I think, than putting a transaction together, matching the client and the candidate. Nothing gives me greater joy, certainly gives our office and our staff that kind of joy. We get a real kick out of it. I think people will enjoy that. If people is your passion, then I think this is the game.
And the pitfalls?
Well, it's the competition, I guess. I think there's pressure on fees, and I think that we constantly have to remind our clients of the value proposition that we bring, the independence that we bring to the process. So yeah, that makes it tough, I guess.
And finally, very briefly, is this it for you? Is it headhunting for life, or do you want to do something else as an entrepreneur in the future?
I love this business, and I certainly want to grow it. Remember, Mindworx we're in the consulting business, the search, and obviously contracting. So I think between those three things, a common thread in that business is all analytical type skills. So I think between the three businesses, I think I certainly got enough work out there. I certainly want to keep at it and have enough energy to keep going.
Best of luck with it. Thank you very much, Jonah Naidoo, the creator of Mindworx, a recruitment and headhunting company. Now we've reached the end of our 30 minutes, unfortunately. Make sure you tune in next week when we unpack another entrepreneurial success story. Until then, from myself, Chris Bishop, it's goodbye.